วัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะคุณนัท
So the last time we discussed about the importance of women's empowerment and gender equality, but this time around you decided to shift the focus on leadership and mental well-being. So why is this becoming much more important nowadays?
I think it's always been important, but I think people now are realizing it even more given what happened after the pandemic. I think a lot of people went through losses of family members and also realizing that when you're working from home, I think especially women, you end up taking on the role of caregiver, taking care of the house, and working at the same time for working women. And I think that impacts people's well-being a lot. On top of the fact that everything is moving so much faster these days and you're constantly plugged in. Like there's not even a moment where you're not plugged in anymore, I feel. Even in the shower, I'm plugged in, you know? Yeah. So because of that, I think people realize their mental health is being impacted severely by this. And the pivot is still, I mean, it's on leadership and well-being, but at the heart of it, we're still all about inclusion. But we realize that you can't empower women one side. You really need everybody on board. Policies to be changed, the men need to be on board too. So it's more, you have to be well first internally before you can lead other people well.
Right. It's really interesting though, is that nowadays many people are distracted by many things, whether it's
Yes.
social media, the internet, the expectations by your peers, or even the delayed responsibilities that people have, even for women. How difficult is it for women to find the right balance and mental well-being despite having these responsibilities?
I mean, speaking from being a mother, a daughter, a sister, a wife, it's hard to find that balance because I think we as women have a problem saying no, first of all. And secondly, we also take on a lot of responsibilities because we're expected to do it from young. You know, we're burdened with these responsibilities. So to shift to saying that I come first and to take care of yourself first, so that you can show up 100%. Not because I want to be selfish. You know, that's a very different approach to it. It's more, I need to take care of myself first so I can show up at 100%. It's something that I think we need to really allow women to do and to teach women to do for themselves, which is self-care first.
And it's interesting though, because self-care is not selfish to begin with.
But it seems like it, right?
Yeah, but some people may think it's selfish because you're prioritizing yourself instead of the responsibilities, taking care of your family, taking care of what you have at work or anything else that we might not be able to see. But then how can we tell people that self-love and self-care is so important and it's not selfish?
I mean, you just think of examples, right? Like, if a man goes to play golf every single weekend, it's pretty normal. If a woman does that, suddenly you're like, you're not taking care of the responsibilities of your kids or the house and stuff. So it's interesting, why is that burden always laid upon just the women? So yes, self-care is not being selfish at all because we actually need to show up in a manner that is well. Otherwise, we're showing up at like barely surviving. We don't want to show up on survival mode. We want to show up on thriving mode. And in order to do that, you really need to be comfortable and make it a habit to put certain hours of the day or week for yourself, I feel.
Right, but why are women are often portrayed as being selfish for prioritizing themselves while men may not face the same thing?
Because it's not normalized, because the expectations of society are that women are sacrificing and self-sacrificing and givers, which I think we are, right? But I think it gets to a point where right now it's too much. It's an overload of responsibilities, an overload of information. Like we are constantly being bombarded by information, whether it's social media or the news or whatever it is that's happening. And so I just think it's societal norms that have portrayed us to be that way, and that probably needs to shift. And the truth is, when you see the well-being space, mostly it's women attending it. So you wonder, why are women seeking so much self-care? And it's just because they really need it.
Yeah.
They don't have it. And that's why they need it more. And when you show up in these sound healing baths or whatever it is mostly women. And I think it's because we are really struggling these days to be well.
Either struggling, stressed,
Yeah.
anxious, or any other emotions that are like into us, right?
Yes, and I think also we're wired to be able to, I think men are wired to keep things in, right? Which doesn't mean that they don't need it. They just don't know that they need it. Whereas women are wired to be a little bit more communicative, more expressive, we need an outlet to let go. And that's why this, if you call it a trend for well-being is coming on so strong, is that we have been sick for some time, I think, and very disconnected with ourselves. And that need to be connecting to our own mind, body, soul is very much needed these days.
And even though there are many female leaders around the world, but many of them still have to bear with the double burden. So how much of this is holding women back at the moment?
It's a lot. And it does hold women back, especially when, for example, when women give birth. A lot of times women take time off. If they have one child, it's 6 to 9 months. If they've got 2, 3 children, then it becomes longer, 2, 3 years, 3 years becomes 5 years. And then getting back into the workforce is extremely difficult, as you may know, right? If you take that much time off, it's very hard for employees to want to hire you because you've been out for so long. And especially these days when everything's moving so much faster.
Yep.
Like technology is moving so much faster, everything's moving so much faster. If you are not in touch with what's going on, 5 years, 20 years ago was 5 years. 5 years now, it seems like a century, you know? So to answer your question, it really is much harder for women to get back into the workforce, and when they're burdened with it. And then what ends up happening is this vicious cycle. They become reliant on their husbands, which is great until it's not great, right? And that lack of independence, that lack of feeling like you are able to contribute, it causes a whole other cycle of not feeling confident. Then you end up being, you could subject yourself to being abused. Like there's a whole different other can of worms that open up when you are not financially independent, which is something that we stress very much at Dragonfly. Is financial independence for women is really important for you to feel like, you are worth something. And that I think is the one key thing, that you feel like you can do it, you are worth something.
Right, but then in many countries, especially in developed countries, the responsibilities at home, the gap is not too high.
No.
But if it's like in Asia, especially in Thailand, it's like this. So women take care of all the responsibilities, whether it's childcare or home care, but men don't do much. So how do we close this gap, especially in Thai culture?
That's a really good question, and that's something that we need to all work on. It starts with a level of awareness and level of education and acceptance to try to normalize that. Like you said, in Europe, they share household duties, right? They share childcare leave. There's not maternity leave, there's parental leave, which is unheard of here in Asia. The thing that I always hear is, Thailand is doing great. We have so many women leaders.
Yeah.
Yes, we do, but they're doing double and triple the work because, like you said, the men don't feel that it's their responsibility. So we definitely need to shift that and to educate and for them to understand. It's not that we're trying to put the burden on you. We're trying to say, help. We need help too. We need help with this. We're working. We're coming back. We're breaking our backs with childcare. We're handling the household. Like, it's a lot, and we just need your help to understand that. Can we share these responsibilities? Can we share these roles? Like, it's so much better that way too, right? They're called parents for a reason. There's 2 of them. It's not called mother,
It's like a teamwork, even though it's like a family.
It takes a village, right? In other words.
So the thing is that like women are dealing with this double burden, with all these responsibilities. So from your perspective, what would be the best way for women to find the right balance despite the late responsibilities?
I think there's two things here. One is trying to educate the men and create an awareness and understanding from them to start pitching in. If that doesn't work, that's fine too. We are the master of our own domain. We need to be responsible for ourselves. So we probably need to set boundaries and goals and allocate time for what I was talking about, well-being and self-care. Because if nobody is helping us and we are breaking ourselves, doing everything, only we can really stop that. And I know it sounds like so easy to do, but it's not easy to do, but it does need to be done. Such as, boundaries in terms of, this is how much work I am going to do, and it's not going to be 120%, but at least I have the time to take care of myself. And that, I think, has to go with corporate policies too, as well, like an understanding that for me, I understand that other women have these burdens. When they go home, they've got to take care of their husbands, their kids. On weekends, they probably have to take care of their parents too. Like, it's nonstop. So we just have to have a little bit more empathy and compassion and understanding in terms of that, and not it's a systematic change too, right? Like, companies can play a big role in that too. Policies that can be implemented that say, okay, you can work from home, you can take a break. Like, we just need to be a little bit more flexible and lenient in things and in terms of the expectations that we have. Not saying that women can't perform as much, because actually women are really, really hardworking, right? They're really hardworking here. And they probably can achieve the same amount in 5 hours that not to diss men, but men can, because they need to work faster, harder, more efficient. But we need to understand that and give them a break from time to time too.
So how do you find the right balance for yourself when you have to juggle so many things from taking care of your children, taking care of the household, and you're also working?
I had a realization, because I couldn't sleep for the past 10 years. So I've had serious insomnia. And it got to the point that I was popping so many pills that I thought to myself, if I pop more pills in this, because then you develop a tolerance. And I said, if I pop more pills in this, I may just never wake up. And that's when that drastic, sometimes you need to hit rock bottom to really drastically change for yourself. And that was the rock bottom for me. And I said, I need to do something to really be able to sleep, because sleep is an integral part of your life every single day.
Yep.
So I'd show up like a zombie the next day, and then there was anxiety, like, am I going to be able to sleep tonight? Am I going to sleep tonight? And I've tried everything, like sleep therapy, Reiki, everything. And that's why I went on this journey. But for me, the main thing that helped was I realized it's like a phone where your memory is full. And my memory was full, like probably over full. And so I needed to clean it and clear it. And so I started to meditate with the help of one of my cousins who's a monk. And that to me is my go-to. And I do it every day, and it's a practice that I've built every single day just to clear out my mind. Because my issue is more, there's too much going on. And I needed to figure out a way, how do I clear it so I can also show up more clear and as a better leader?
When we talk about self-care nowadays, these tools are becoming more popular, whether it's sound baths, journaling, and all these other things. So how can we make it sustainable, not just a trend that comes and goes?
I think the trends are people continuously reinventing certain things, such as like when you say yoga. Before, yoga was one thing. Then it became like hot yoga, fly yoga, every type of yoga. Like there was even goat yoga I tried. So those I think are trends. Whereas sound healing, I think, and sound healing too. There's like 10 different types of sound healings. We were doing floating sound healing this weekend. I don't think those things are trends, but what you're doing in terms of self-care is no longer going to be a trend. It really has become important that people are prioritizing themselves in order to show up better, not for any other reason than that. And especially in today's world when, like I said, the connectivity is so high, you're plugged in with bombarding with so much information, you no longer even know what is true and false anymore, right? Like Yuval said that. You don't know what's true and false anymore. Your reality is 10 options. And so how do you know what option to choose? And the only way really to do that is to kind of take a step back and make this as a habit, well-being or wellness or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like exercise.
Yep.
So people go to the gym, they realize, okay, it's good for your body. You need to exercise for your health, your physical body health. But well-being is you need to exercise for your mental health.
It's like from the inside, right?
Yeah, and it's a big part of you. Like we tend to. Do you work out?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes? Okay, so
well, to be fair, I do work out like at least 2 to 3 times a week. But then like I try to do it more because I know that it's supposed to be good for my health, but then because of my schedule, it has been quite difficult for me to like maintain that same schedule.
I think people are interesting this way. So people are like, we say we're gonna do it until something drastic or seriously bad happens to you or somebody around you.
Like an illness.
An illness or something, we put it off, right? We're kind of like, we can do this later, we can do this later.
Yeah.
But really you never know, right? So it's the same thing with exercise. You should do it, we all know it's good for it. Same thing with well-being. We know we should do it. It's all good for us. Meditation, it's been proven over and over, but it's hard to form that habit.
Yeah.
So the key is to form that habit. And the minute it becomes a habit, then you realize if you're not doing it, something's missing. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's if I'm not exercising every day, something's missing. If I'm not meditating every day, something's missing. So prioritizing your health above all else, I think is the most important thing in the world. And that trend I don't think is going away. I think people more and more are becoming sick more easily, losing people they love. The people who are around them are getting cancer quicker, strokes younger. Everything is becoming younger and sooner than we realize. And when you see all that around you, I think you start realizing that if I'm not going to take care of myself, then who is, right? And so you prioritize yourself. So personally, I don't think it's a trend. I think it's here to stay. It's just how do you form that healthy habit and instill it in your life?
And it's not just about physical health, but it's mental health right here. So what would be the easiest trick for those who just want to start focusing on their mental health a lot more?
Meditation. Start 10 minutes a day. Every day, morning, evening. Just do that, quick. And it doesn't need to be long periods too, and it doesn't need to be like in a special place, in a special room. Whenever you have time, actually I met a monk in Bhutan. He says, instead of meditating 30 minutes a day, meditate 30 times for 1 minute a day. So it's practicing mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
And just taking that breather. I mean, I'm sure you go through a day sometimes when you are like, am I breathing? Like, right? Did I forget to breathe today? Because we are so not aware, like, are we breathing deep enough?
Or are we like panting?
Yeah, or are we just like constantly on panic mode and like go, 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 which I'm sure that's a typical day for you. That's a typical day for me. When I'm in the elevator, sometimes I'm like, just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Are you breathing? You know, are you just take those mini breaks from time to time throughout the day and you'll notice a huge difference. Yeah.
So what's the main difference between not meditating and meditating for 10 minutes each day for you?
For me, it clears out the stress. It clears out the clutter. It clears out the noise, the anxiety, the nervousness as to, is this going to succeed or not? It allows you to just let go, and it just makes me more clear. Like, I can feel my brain physically calming down versus it just being like a jumble of information and continuously going like a automobile factory, you know? It's like just hitting the slow or snooze button basically to just, and it makes me more clear in my thinking, because just imagine you're operating at like a million different things going on at the same time, right? Meditation allows you to just things pop up, things you realize you've forgotten things, you realize the priorities and what's important. And I think it's key. And you think, whoa, 10 minutes, that sounds easy enough. It's not easy. It takes you a long time to get into it. But it's a habit building thing. But I mean, just stop scrolling on social media for that 10 minutes and translate it to meditation instead. Because people are scrolling a lot, right?
Yeah.
On mindless stuff. Just shift that over.
Well, if someone is not so into meditation, are there any other ways that they can focus on themselves, like reading? Or it could be like journaling? Or
Yes.
which one would be like the best idea for those who do not like meditating?
You can do anything that you're just doing one thing at the same time. So journaling, painting, playing an instrument, reading, like you said, breathing, yoga, anything that you just are focusing on one thing at one time, walking, even gardening, all these things are forms of meditation if you think about it. Because meditation is just the ability to just focus on one thing at one time. It could be your breathing, it could be a mantra, it could be whatever it is that you want. But usually what's happening in your phone is you've got 100 tabs open at once, right?
Yeah.
And you're not focusing on one thing at one time. So it's that. Or have you noticed hugs? Have you done like a deep hug is really meditative. You're like, because most of us, we hug without thinking. But this one time I was in New York and someone gave me this hug and I could feel their heartbeat. And I was like, I've never hugged like that before. You know, and that's a form of meditation too, where it's just, you have an intention to really do something.
So this can be done with your family or just your friends as well, if we're gonna do deep hugs.
Yeah, try it. Next time when you like hug somebody, the difference between a hug and an intentional hug, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Great. Let me go back a bit about the double burden and mental
Yes.
well-being.
Yes,
So,
let's not get too woo-woo, right?
anyway, so I'm pretty sure that many people have increased awareness about gender equality, especially in Thailand. But what about the awareness about the double burden, the mental well-being of women? How much awareness do you see at the moment in society?
I think it's still really low, sadly. I say that because I have a 15-year-old son, so I know that generation, what they're thinking. And as much as I can teach my son, which is great, we all have the responsibility to teach our kids. It can be whatever gender, that responsibility needs to shift. I just wish it would shift faster because we don't really want to wait for another 30 years for some impact to happen. So I guess for your audience and everyone, we need to just really create that sense of awareness by living it and through example, because I can preach it, but if I'm at home and I'm still doing all these things and my husband isn't, then they're going to see that and pick it up. And so sadly, to answer your question, it's still really low. I don't know why it's really low. I'm sure you see that too, right? That double role, that chores and stuff, it still very much falls on the women, and that needs to change.
What would be your final advice to women who are still struggling to find a way to mental well-being despite the responsibilities at work and at home?
You know, women have this tendency to be guilty. Have you noticed? It's a real female trait, guilt. You look at men, they don't really feel guilty. So my one advice is, do not feel guilty for taking the time to take care of yourself. Draw boundaries when you need to and learn to say no. That's another trait that women don't like to do. We can say no quite easily. No, I'm not free. No, I can't do that. Just learn to say no comfortably is what would be my advice, without guilt. You don't need to feel guilty for saying no for even no reason. Just, I don't feel like it is a good enough reason. I think I say it because I lived that life of being a working mom. And so I'm guilty when I'm working to my child. When I'm with my child, I'm guilty to work for not spending that time with them. I'm guilty for not spending enough time with my husband. I'm not guilty for not spending enough time with my parents. And I'm always feeling like I'm not doing enough. But then when you shift that mindset to understand that this is all I can do, and I'm doing the best I possibly can, and actually I'm doing good, then everything goes away. The guilt goes away, everything goes away, and you feel like, okay, I'm okay to feel good about myself, which is also not a very female trait, to feel like I'm doing great. You know, it's not something that we impose upon ourselves because we feel it's egotistical, we feel it's like, you know, you're bragging, but really we should just like pat ourselves on the back and be like, we're okay, we're doing good.
And that's a very important lesson for not just women, but
everyone in general. Yes, completely. It's something we should instill in all our children, boys and girls, that it's okay to say no. It's okay to not feel guilty for feeling like I just am too tired today and I don't want to do it.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much. คุณ
ขอบคุณมากค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ